would it be contingent to the Aryan invasion theory that Sanskrit, Greek, and Latin stemmed from the same source?
I think that has been the assumption that a Proto-Indo-European.
Right.
And I'll get to you. Just let me try to answer this. And I do not know if it is contingent, but my experience both with South India and Northeast Asia, India has many languages, and people tell me that's true of American Indian languages also, that the more primitive a society is, the greater the diversity of languages. That's what they tell me. And we know in the formation of a language in what is called Arunachal Pradesh, that it seems to be a sort of a coming together, people borrowing forth and forming a language, rather than splitting from. Again, it depends on where you are starting from. For example, modern English came as a fusion of Anglo-Saxon and French, the Norman French, okay? And so I really don't think the science can answer that question. At least I don't know enough of the appropriate science, and I don't know if it can be called a science. At least it will not qualify as a science the way we look at the problems. And yeah. I know it's not a satisfactory answer, but that's the best I can do. Yeah.
Oh, well, I just, I don't think that they, from my own practical knowledge of the three languages, it is impossible for me to believe that they all came from the same source.
I don't believe they came from the same source.
Latin and Greek do definitely seem to be sort of partially remembered, partially reconstructed superior language from a past time.
I believe that is true of Sanskrit also. I believe Sanskrit was created language. It's even possible. I don't know the Vedic language as well. I mean, let us recognize the fact that Rigvedic Sanskrit is quite different from the Sanskrit of Kalidasa, Bhasa, and those people. I mean, most of the 90% of the literature that we read, I mean, I took Sanskrit as a second language, although I'm not a Sanskrit scholar of the same standing as, for example, David Frawley or Natverja, but I know enough to be able to communicate with them and benefit from their ideas. So I would say that the classical Sanskrit and even the pre-classical Puranic and the epic Sanskrit does not prepare you to read the Rigveda. Okay, I have to go to Vedic scholars. So I would say that Sanskrit, as the word itself, Samskrita, implies, was a crafted language, which could have been used later, okay, which could have become, to me it seems that the world has always had a language other than their mother tongue, which was widely used. For example, in Renaissance Europe and other, Latin was widely used. And in medieval India, at least in North India, Persian was widely used. Today, English is used. Okay? Sanskrit, I believe, was similarly used 2,000 years, 1,500, 2,000 years ago. Because a great deal of the literature, including inscriptions which are pure administrative, mundane records, Sanskrit inscriptions that I have seen, it was used as an administrative language. And I have seen Cambodian inscriptions. We don't have the time, otherwise there is some very interesting material from there. I made trips to Cambodia a few years ago. So Sanskrit was used over a wide area as an administrative convenience also. So I fully agree with you that that I don't know about Latin and Greek, but Sanskrit, in my view, was a created language which might have been spoken. Just as many of us who use English today, we don't speak English at home. I believe the same was true of Sanskrit. Dandin, for example, a great South Indian poet, Bhavabhuti, they probably spoke their own languages at home. And I'm sure Samskrita Bharati here, who greeted me in beautiful Sanskrit, you speak your own languages at home. You speak Tamil, I know. So
Okay.
I speak Kannada, so it's, and he speaks Awadhi. So I'm hearing it for the first time. Your statement that they're constructed languages. Am I correct in understanding this? Created languages.
Yeah, created, artificial
to attain
languages.
a certain standard of perfection.
Yeah.
That's my view of Sanskrit also.
To your point also about what you just said, Greek is referred to as koina, the common tongue of educated people from all of the various city-states at that time.
I know. For example, there are Greek inscriptions in northwestern part of Indian subcontinent. If not in India proper, I don't know about that. But in Peshawar, that region, you find Greek inscriptions because it was an administrative language with Alexander's system. Now, the very fact that the people who wrote the New Testament, they probably didn't speak Greek at all. You know, yeah. So and it was the language of theology. Okay. So yes, sir. Any other? Yeah. That's a good one.